千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Daodejing by Laozi. As always, I would like to extend a warm welcome to one and all. Thank you for joining us. I would like to invite you to center your thoughts and direct your attention to this moment in time, to the here and now, to be fully present and mindfully aware as we all ready ourselves for this sacred process in the Tao with one another. So now, without further ado, let's get into Daodejing chapter 78. As it is with all other chapters of the Daodejing, chapter 78 has a 3-character Chinese title. Let me share with you what those characters are. 水德章. The first character that you see there, the one on the left, that is the character for water. The one in the middle, De, is the character for virtue. So water virtue. And then finally, the character on the right, Zhang, that's just the character for chapter. So this is the quote-unquote water virtue chapter. And what it means is the virtue of water. So what does the chapter say? Let's take a look at the chapter itself. A fairly standard length of 13 lines. Daodejing, chapter 78. Nothing in the world is softer or weaker than water, yet nothing is better at overcoming the hard and strong. This is because nothing can replace it, that the weak overcomes the strong and the soft overcomes the hard. Everybody in the world knows, but cannot put into practice. Therefore, sages say, the one who accepts the humiliation of the state is called its master. The one who accepts the misfortune of the state becomes king of the world. The truth seems like the opposite. So the division of these cryptic lines are going to be as follows. Let me show you what the divisions are, and then I want to explain how we get those divisions, those different sections. You can see that we have 3 sections here. We've got an introductory section, a middle part, and then the conclusion. So scanning the lines from top to bottom, I think everyone can see that the first obvious iteration is going to be lines 4 and 5. If you look at the characters in 4 and 5, without necessarily knowing what those characters are, you can nevertheless detect repetition. Let me highlight what they are. So the middle 2 characters of line 4 are repeated in line 5. And that's because they begin a poetic construction that starts the middle section. And you can see the translation to the right-hand side. Those characters mean overcomes. So there's more. Looking back at section 1, there's no real obvious iterations that we can see that's in the same position from one line to the next. If we were to look down further into section 3, we can see one obvious repetition, and that's line 9 and line 11. Let me highlight those similarities so they're easier to see. And as you can see there, line 9, the first two characters are exactly the same as the first two characters of line 11. And you can see the translation to the right-hand side. They're translated the same way of the state. So there's also less obvious iterations throughout the entire chapter, and they are spread around one per section. Let me highlight what those are. They're not so obvious because they appear in different places, different positions. So the first two iterations of that appear as the first two characters, but then in line 12, those two characters appear in the middle. What do they mean? Let me circle the translation to the right, and now you can see the correspondence. All three instances are translated the same way, the world. So the two characters are literally, as we will see, the first one is sky or heaven. The second one is below or beneath. So basically, it is saying beneath the heaven, below the sky. In other words, the world. So that is how we divide up the sections, and now you can see there's repeating characters that can mark the sections for us. As well, we have repetition of 天下, the world, that ties the whole chapter together as one unit. So let's get into a line-by-line discussion of chapter 78. Starting with section 1, the first 3 lines. So now I want to highlight the character shui. This character has a pinyin that looks like shui, but it's actually shui. This is water. This is the character for water. It is important, central in the Tao because it is the ultimate in adaptability and power. It is a central metaphor in the Daodejing, and it is repeated multiple times. As well, the concept of softness is repeated many times as well. Now let's talk first about the adaptability, the versatility of water itself. Water, we know, can be steam, the gaseous form, liquid, or ice, the solid form. We're familiar with water in all 3 manifestations. As steam, water has the ability to drive powerful steam engines. As liquid, which is the most common manifestation of water, it conforms to the shape of any container. It is the ultimate in adaptability. It is the reason why there is a quote from Bruce Lee. He famously said, "Be water, my friend." He was talking about how you pour water into a container and it assumes the shape of that container no matter what that is. Could be glass, could be bottle, could be anything. And lastly, let's talk about solids. As ice, water can be the iceberg that sinks ships. So in that description, we have versatility, we have changeability, we have powerful manifestations of how incredibly mighty water can be in many forms. So let's talk about softness. In the same line 1 in the middle, we have these two characters that are central to the Tao. 柔弱. If you look at the pinyin, it doesn't really suggest the correct sound. A native English speaker may look at the pinyin and say 柔弱. When in reality, it sounds more like 柔弱. So the pronunciation is a little tricky, poses problems for non-native speakers. Regardless of the pronunciation, what the characters mean, the first character literally means soft. That's 柔. The second character, 弱, means weak. Now, it's used in different ways. It can mean pliant, it can mean flexible. So not necessarily weak in terms of weakness that we think about. So the bottom line is that water doesn't have, as a liquid, it doesn't have a fixed form. It doesn't have a fixed shape, so it's formless and shapeless. And one observation is that you can strike water, you will make a splash, but you cannot damage it. Water doesn't care. As soon as you're done hitting it, it goes back to where it was before. It reforms. And it is the ultimate in softness. It is the ultimate in being able to seep into everything. You can think about how water finds and penetrates into even the smallest openings. Give it any opportunity and it will seep right through. And I think many of us have the experience that even one tiny hole in the roof, water will find it. When it rains, it will definitely leak through that little hole. However little it can be, water finds that hole and the leak comes through. The rain outside drips inside the house. And then you have to get out the bucket to remedy the situation. I think many of us have had that experience. That just shows how incredibly versatile and powerful water can be in a different way. So let's focus on softness. As I mentioned, this character, 柔, is repeated many times in the Daodejing. The first significant mention we find in chapter 36. So we went through 36 quite some time ago. In that chapter, it said the soft and weak overcomes the tough and strong. Fish cannot leave the depths. The softness is a primary principle of the Tao, and the sentence that follows, fish cannot leave the depths, it is a reference to something that is in hiding, that is hidden. That is to say, a fish swimming in the depths is not easily seen. It is something that is hidden. Water has hidden strengths, and fish in the depths is analogous to that. So more on the hidden strengths of water later on in our discussion. For now, let's stick to the many repetitions, many mentions of softness throughout the Daodejing. The next significant mention we find in Daodejing chapter 43. In that chapter, it starts out with the softest things of the world override the hardest things of the world. And you can see in the red, the original and the translation. So the characters look a little different from 36 to 43, but they're expressing the same concept. And oftentimes, you can conjugate different characters into an expression in modern Mandarin, as well as ancient Chinese. So here it is saying the softer things in the world, it's talking about water, override the harder things of the world. And that can be, it can be rocks, it can be mineral, it can be metal, etc. The next significant mention of softness we find in 52, Daodejing chapter 52. And in that chapter, toward the end, it says, seeing details is called clarity. Holding on to the soft is called strength. This is another way to express this ancient idea that water appears to be soft, pliable, it's infinitely adaptable, and yet it is strong. So for us to follow the principle of softness, to hold on to the soft, it means strength. It means we're spiritually strong if we can hold on to the soft. We're going to see that repeated quite a few times in this chapter too. Then, chapter 76, this is just a couple of chapters ago, the same concept shows up again. It says, the big and forceful occupy a lowly position, while the soft and pliant occupy a higher place. So as I mentioned, weakness, the character for weakness can be interpreted as pliant. It's weak, so you can move it any way you want. You can bend it, it bends just fine. And yet that is the source of the strength. So here it is being quite clear in 76, the soft and pliant occupy a higher place because it is in reality strong. It is a tremendous hidden strength. The big and forceful has the appearance of being mighty, but it actually occupies a lowly position. And finally, in this chapter, we see the echo of all of the above. We just went through line 1. It says, nothing in the world is softer or weaker than water. Yep, we're saying the same thing in a different way. Then what follows is, yet nothing is better at overcoming the hard and strong. And that line is what we want to get into right now. With this slide, though, you can see that the same idea is reiterated throughout the Daodejing in different ways. This is just to give you like an overview. Thanks to modern technology, it is easy for us to see the repetitions, and this is a benefit to all of us studying the Tao today. Let's get into line 2. Line 2 says, yet nothing is better at overcoming the hard and strong. This is based on observations by the ancient sages. They looked around at each other, they looked around at people in general, people in society, and then they also turned their gaze to nature. What they definitely notice in nature is that water has a powerful effect on the environment. There's rain, there's snow, there's flowing water in terms of streams and rivers, and throughout their observation, they noted long-term the effects of water erosion in nature. They can tell when they go into a cave, when they see dripping water that has drilled through solid rock. So they can conclude that in time, water wins, it will go right through. And when they look outside, reasoning from their observation, they can see that flowing water, streams, rivers, in time, could carve out dramatic features in the landscape. Canyons, cliffs. They're beautiful and they are testimonial to the power of water. They noted as they look at the boats and ships, ocean-going vessels, that water could float or sink the mightiest ships. Even in ancient times, China had built incredibly powerful, large ships entirely out of wood. They could sail the oceans, but if they were to encounter a powerful storm, water would sink even the mightiest ships. On a more personal level, they noted that water is essential for life. So we drink water to slake our thirst. Water could nourish, but then it could also drown the mightiest warriors. No matter how powerful those warriors may be, you put them on the water for a length of time, they're not going to survive. Today, as far as the process of water sculpting the landscape, geologists in modern times call that downcutting. Downcutting occurs as a river carves out canyons or valley, cutting into the earth, eroding away rock, little bit at a time. Yet another way for us in modern times to see how the softness of water can hide tremendous strength, strength that is not evident except perhaps in the fullness of time. Let's move on to line 3. Line 3 says, this is because nothing can replace it. Nothing can replace water. There is no substitute for water in nature. Water is just water, and we cannot do without it. It is essential for life. As I mentioned, all living things need it. You and I need water every day, all the time. So we can tell from everything that we have discussed so far, water is capable of life and death. Water is not only essential for life, but it is capable of destroying anything sooner or later. It is the perfect embodiment of life and death. The yin and yang symbol can stand for that. It is therefore the most fitting metaphor for the Tao. Now, I think many people listening to this talk already have familiarity with various aspects of ancient Chinese culture, including the 5 elements. Water is one of those 5 elements, and out of all the different elements, it is the most fitting metaphor for the Tao. I want to explain why that is the case. So let's talk about the 5 elements for just a moment. 五行. So what are the 5? This graphic shows what they are. And typically for the Chinese, they will read off the 5 starting from the bottom left, Jing. And then if you follow the red arrow, you go to Mu. And then typically in Chinese, you then talk about water, which is between the 2. And then finally on the right-hand side, you go to fire, and then end with earth. So it's spoken in a sequence that doesn't follow what you see here with either the red arrows or the gray arrows. The red arrows and gray arrows are meant to describe a generating sequence and a sequence for overcoming. So let's talk about what those sequences are. Starting with water, which is the black one, the black circle to the left, 水. Follow the gray arrow to the top, 木. So water nourishes wood. like water nurturing plants. Plants need water. So plants need water in order to grow. We water the plants. So that is a generating sequence. Water generating or allowing plants to grow. Okay, now the wood from plants generates fire. It's a generating sequence because even in ancient times, they knew to gather firewood, they knew to start a fire to have warmth for cooking and so on. So water goes to wood, wood burns to create fire. That's the next step in the generating sequence. Now, eventually, fire will burn out and it leaves behind ash and dust, which goes back to the ground as part of the earth. So the ancients looked at that and they said, fire generates earth. Then, from their experience mining for gold, mining for silver, mining for iron, they could tell that within the earth, it creates or generates metal. So metal comes from mines. As they shape metal instruments, this could be weapons, this could be vessels for holding water, just daily tools for different purposes. They see water condensing on metal in the morning. Then they say, look at that, metal is generating water. So in reality, the water droplets come from the moisture in the atmosphere. But to the ancients, it looked like water is coming out of metal. So that you have the 5 steps in the generating sequence. Then the red arrows is the other sequence, the overcoming sequence. The most obvious example is water to fire, water putting out fire. Then going across the diagram from fire to metal, well, in ancient times, they would use very hot fires in the furnace to melt metal, to shape different instruments. So that's the work of the blacksmith. So it seemed very obvious to the ancients that fire has an overcoming sequence to metal. Fire beats metal, sort of like rock, scissors, paper, etc. And then metal beats wood, following that red arrow. And that's because the ancients observed that, for instance, a metallic weapon or a tool like an axe can chop wood. So metal is harder than wood, and therefore metal overcomes wood. Then wood has an arrow pointing to earth. What does that mean? Wood overcoming the earth? It means as a tree grows, it is getting its nutrients from soil. It is sucking the goodness from fertile soil, and therefore wood overcomes earth. And then finally, earth overcomes water. How does that work? Well, the ancients noticed that even beavers were capable of building dams to redirect water. They themselves could use earth in grand construction projects to build a dam of their own to redirect and control water to some extent. Therefore, they could see that the earth overcomes water. So that is the overcoming interaction. It's the complement to the generating interaction. So that is what we have talked about so far is the conventional outline of the 5 elements. And also they're known as the 5 phases, but let's stick to the 5 elements. It's the more common term to describe the interaction sequences. Out of all these, we are now going to take another step in Tao philosophy and highlight water. Water seems like the most pliant, most flexible among all of these, the most versatile, taking different shapes. It may seem to be the softest and the weakest, but it is actually the strongest. And I want to explain why the ancients thought that way. So one element out of this entire thing is identified as the one, the most powerful. And here's a diagram to showcase that. Now you can see I've got the elements lined up on the left-hand side. I've got water singled out in terms of its interactions with those elements. So the ancient sages noted it is the nature of water when interacting with these elements, it has a way to defeat all four. With metal, it is the nature of water to corrode, rust, and eventually erode metal. What about wood? Well, you put wood in water and put those together, and you quickly see it is the nature of water to soften, rot, and disintegrate wood. Wood is eventually dissolved in water. Then what about fire? Well, that's the obvious one. We see how water can extinguish, put out, or snuff out fire. And then what about the earth? We talked about how earth can beat water in terms of building dams as an example, but then at the same time, as the ancients have noted, water over the course of time, drilling through rocks, capable of carving out and sculpting terrain. Mountains, canyons, valleys. And then water is also capable of seeping into and dissolving dirt, clay, rocks, etc. So water has the ability to overcome anything given sufficient time. And that is why on the right-hand side, I have the Chinese character there for strong. Not usually talked about, it's a hidden strength, but a hidden strength that water exhibits. At the bottom, we have the effect, the nature of water in relation to everything, everywhere, meaning every place, and everyone. So no matter what it is, no matter what elements, no matter what things we're talking about in the material world, it is the nature of water to flood, inundate, and cover up. It has the ability to contain all things. It is possible for water to inundate, overwhelm anything. What about everywhere? Meaning every place. No matter where you go, no matter what place you look at, if there's water there, water will naturally flow to the lowest point, and it'll stay there. It'll occupy the lowest point. Ancient sages will point to this, and point to this being the natural tendency of water because it is exhibiting a natural virtue of humility. Then the sages would also point out that human beings are not like that. Human beings will get to the highest place so they can be seen, they can be more visible, they can have a higher profile and attract attention. Water, in contrast to that, goes to the lowest point. This becomes even more significant later on as we talk about applying water to life. And what about everyone? Well, no matter who you are, water will float or sink all the same way. This is when we have expressions like the high tide floats all boats. Now, it doesn't matter what the boats are. It doesn't matter if the boats are big or small. High tide is going to float all of them, from the largest cruise liner to just a skiff. Water is always seeking its own level. That's another saying that we have. And no matter what level it is assuming, high or low, it applies to all equally. There's a lack of favoritism for anyone. Water doesn't give anybody special treatment. Applied to life, this means water is naturally egalitarian. If we were to emulate water, we would be not only humble, the virtue of humility, but also we would treat everyone the same. Just like the falling rain is raining on all plants, whether they are trees, flowers, or weeds. No matter what the growth is, water from heaven is going to water them evenly, equally. Same thing with flooding. When flooding occurs, it is flooding everything in that vicinity. No favoritism. The river that flows across the land is feeding all living things for what they need. All living things require water. It doesn't matter what they are. It could be predator, prey. It could be beautiful plants or not so beautiful plants. It doesn't matter to water. Water treats all equally. So a Tao cultivator who emulates water would not be discriminatory in any way. So all of these together is painting a picture of water, its characteristics, its nature, that it has hidden strength, as you see on top, and it has a specific nature that we can emulate. Emulating that nature of water is a sign not of weakness, but of tremendous hidden strength. So let's continue on. Line 4, that the weak overcomes the strong. And then it'll follow with the other parts of the couplet, and the soft overcomes the hard. But let's stick to line 4 for now. The weak overcomes the strong, a general principle that applies in all aspects of life. Typically, we look to the strong to overcome the weak. That seems obvious. So to say it the other way is counterintuitive. But we have countless examples of that in the West as well. We all know the example of David and Goliath. Well-known story from the Bible where the smaller and physically weaker David is able to defeat the bigger and physically stronger, very much more imposing Goliath, the giant. So how is it, here's the question, how is it that a David, no matter what manifestation, the smaller combatant can defeat the larger opponent, the more powerful opponent? Well, there are two primary reasons. So first of all, the weak tend to be innovative. So David used a sling to defeat Goliath. It is a ranged weapon. It can work over a distance out of reach of the powerful spears wielded by Goliath. That is an innovation. The weak know how to avoid direct conflict, to come within range of the powerful weapons, the short-range weapons of the opposition. This will be an example applied to guerrilla warfare. Avoid direct conflict. Strike where the opponent is weak. This is also about using creativity in approaching from an unexpected direction, using unexpected tactics, doing something that the opponent is not expecting. Also, this is about relying on agility, speed, quickness. And what that says, for instance, in ancient times, when David met Goliath on the battlefield, if David did not succeed with his shot, he could use his agility and speed to avoid, evade the much more powerful but slower giant. Also, David approached the battlefield with a plan in mind. He knew that he could try the sling first, and he had 5 stones. He had 5 chances, so any one of them with the practice that he's had could be deadly, could be accurate. And if it didn't work out, he could run around, pick up more stones, and try again. He had a plan. In general, in any battlefield, whether ancient times or modern times, all of these apply. The weaker side would need to use strategy and innovation, creativity to even the odds. So this is the first primary reason. The second one is that the strong tend to be overconfident. And overconfidence means you underestimate the challenge posed by the smaller and weaker opponent. Goliath expected to easily defeat David. In the business world, a larger, more powerful company would oftentimes disregard smaller competitors with a wave of a dismissive hand, like, oh, they're only so-and-so size. They're no threat to us. We don't need to worry about them. We can crush them easily. Then, as often happens, especially in recent decades, we have seen the smaller competitor overcoming the larger foe, David and Goliath once again. It's all due to this casual attitude that the larger company had. The larger company does not feel preparation is required, much to its frustration later on as it finds itself defeated. So all of this is what we mean about turning disadvantages into advantages. It's an art, the art of battling giants. It is at the same level as what we talk about the hidden strength of water. So we just got done with line 4. We're going to go into line 5. Before we go there, let me also provide a quick remark about what we have just gone through, David and Goliath. How would I apply that to us? What if we are in the position of the smaller, weaker opponent in a field of competition? What if we have disadvantages that we want to turn into advantages? Let me just provide 3 possible examples for everyone's contemplation. Suppose the weakness or disadvantage that we have is a shortage of time, not enough time. Then you can turn that into an advantage by becoming more efficient, to do more in less time, to simplify and streamline so there's not that much more to do. What if there is a weakness in knowledge? What if we don't know enough and that's a disadvantage? Well, we can turn that into an advantage by transforming that weakness into motivation, the reason to learn more, to explore more, to gain knowledge. And then finally, yet another example, what if we're lacking in financial resources? Most of us start out not having a whole lot, so this is rather common. Well, if we don't have enough financial resources, we need to channel that into the creativity to figure out ways to spend wisely, to get more for less, and sometimes to perhaps delay gratification, that luxury vacation, not for right now, but for next year. Delay gratification, saving, accumulating resources, and then using those resources wisely. So let's continue now to line 5. This line is similar to what we have just gone through because our world is full of examples of the soft overcomes the hard. And again, the conventional wisdom seems to be that the hard, the tough guy, overcomes the soft, the untrained opponent. In reality, the Tao is talking about the other paradigm, the soft overcoming the hard, similar to the smaller David overcoming the larger Goliath. Let's take a look at some examples to really bring this to life. In history, we have examples where diplomatic solution is making warfare unnecessary. So the diplomatic solution is the soft. Armed conflict, open warfare, that is the hard approach. It would be much better to go with the soft approach, diplomacy. If that can be resolved to everyone's satisfaction, it is far superior to the lives lost, the damage caused by warfare. So the soft overcomes the hard. And not at the level of nations, but in terms of conflicts between people, we have seen this quite a few times. Hand-to-hand combat, where a strike that can damage, injure, even cripple or kill, that strike can be skillfully deflected. And we have seen in martial arts how the deflection, the channeling, the redirecting of that attacking energy can be skillfully done by someone who has been trained. So that deflection, that channeling of energy is the soft approach. Whereas meeting the strike with a strike of your own, that would be the hard approach. So one person hitting another, the other person striking back at the same time, chances are they both get hurt. So the hard approach ends with damage on both sides. The soft approach ends with the strike not damaging anyone. It is therefore better. Yet another example. This is very common. We don't need to talk about conflict. We don't need to talk about warfare to see the soft overcoming the hard. We have seen quite a few examples where the tough guy, the macho guy, the guy who is like, hey, I'm stronger than anybody, that tough guy turns into a soft, tender, loving father in the presence of his children. And we have all seen examples of that. It's a startling transformation where the tough guy is not there anymore, but just a doting dad. The soft, the children, overcoming the hard, the father. And then also at the personal level, we have seen many times how a sincere apology has the ability to diffuse a tense, potentially explosive situation. You diffuse the bomb that is about to go off. Now, these are just some examples from some aspects of life. If we were to go for a comprehensive list, it would not fit in one slide. What we can say from looking at these is that for every hard approach, there is one or more soft alternative that is better. And we can see even more examples that are outside of what we are listing here. One thing that comes to mind, if you think about the idea of respecting someone, there are those who demand to be respected. That is the hard approach. Now, do people actually respect those who demand to be respected? Our experience, we have seen, the answer is no. The hard approach doesn't work. People give their respect willingly to those who are admired for what they do, but they don't make any demands on anyone. They don't demand to be respected. That is the soft approach. That's the person, that will be the person that people give their respect to quite willingly. So that would be another example where the soft approach is far superior to the hard approach. Then there's also what we have seen is when people make a strong demand. I demand that so-and-so be done. A strong demand we have seen is refused where a polite request would be granted. The polite request is the soft approach. It overcomes, it's better than the hard approach, which is demand, demand, demand. We have also seen an arrogant assertion from someone being rejected. Nobody likes arrogance. Whereas a humble suggestion is accepted. And the interesting thing is, there's going to be times when we notice that the humble suggestion is essentially the same as the arrogant assertion. And yet, the humble suggestion is accepted where the arrogant assertion of the same thing is not. It's just the same with the request versus demand. There are times when we note that the request and the demand are actually essentially the same. But the polite request goes through while the demand is rejected. So what can we conclude about all this? What can we learn? How can we remember this so that we always use the soft approach instead of the hard approach? There is a story in the Tao tradition that illustrates the two different approaches and explains why the soft approach is better. I would like to share the story with you. Once upon a time, there was a vault. This vault contained gold, diamonds, and gems, treasures. There was a sturdy lock guarding this door, the door to this vault to keep everything, to keep the treasures within secure. It so happened that one day the mighty crowbar came by, looked at the lock, and immediately saw the lock as a challenge that he just had to overcome. This was because the crowbar had never encountered anything he could not demolish before. This was funny to the crowbar. Did they really think they could keep him out of the vault with this one simple lock? That's ridiculous. That's ludicrous. And the crowbar thought, I will show them how wrong they are. The crowbar was thick and heavy bar of iron. In his experience, there were countless crates, chests, cabinets that disintegrated before his attack, smashing them to pieces. He took a lot of pride in this. He was strong. He was destructive. He had power. Therefore, looking at the lock, he decided he should make a point. He should just smash it to make the point that he was strong. The crowbar struck the lock, making a very loud noise. He was expecting that it would break apart immediately, but it was not affected. This was surprising to the crowbar. He struck again, put more power into it, put more force into the blow. Same result. The lock did not even show a dent. Now the crowbar was becoming pretty annoyed. He reared back, using his full strength. The crowbar struck, and then again, and then again. Sparks flew. The noise was deafening. After a while, he stopped because it was exhausting. He looked at the lock. He was amazed that the lock was still in one piece. Without a doubt, he thought this was the toughest obstacle he had ever faced. So he was a little puzzled, still trying to figure out what to do next, when the key came along. The key was small where the crowbar was big. The key was slim where the crowbar was thick. The difference between them was dramatic. He was massive, muscular. She seemed insignificant and weak, just a little key. So the key asked him, "Were you the one making all that racket?" The noise was deafening. So the crowbar answered, "Oh, you ain't heard nothing yet. Let me catch my breath. I'll show you this lock who's boss, okay?" And the key said, "No need." She slipped into the lock. She turned slightly. The crowbar heard a click, and the lock fell open. He couldn't believe it. Wait a minute. This makes no sense. I'm a lot more powerful than you are, he said to the key. How is it that you open it so easily when I couldn't do it after all that effort? The key said, "Because I am the one who understands the heart of the lock." The end. Let's talk about this story. What is the Tao of the lock? Well, we know it's a Tao story. We know it's not really about a literal lock, crowbar, and key. We know it's about us. When we encounter obstacles in life, we may be like the crowbar. We may feel the urge to smash the obstacle to pieces. This is a hard approach. This is the method of brute force. Now, when the crowbar resorted to this approach because it was really the only approach he knew, it didn't work. When we try the hard approach ourselves, we see that our hard approach often gives us the same lack of success as the crowbar. We try to smash the key, the lock, or the obstacle, and there's deafening noise, there's a lot of effort that goes into it, but no success. So then, what if we switch gears? What if we use the soft approach instead of the hard approach? What if we use the key instead? The key is the soft approach, is the method of finesse. It's what really we were meant to do. If there's a lock, we're meant to use a key to open it rather than to destroy it in some way. The key said she was able to open the lock easily because the key knew the heart of the lock. It meant the internal working of the lock. So the soft approach for us in life is all about knowing the internal working of the obstacle. The more insights we have, the more we understand, the easier it is to open the lock or to resolve the obstacle. So obviously, there's a lot more that we can say about this. There's whole paragraphs devoted to this topic, the discussion thereof. For those who are interested, more details can be found in the Tao of Daily Life, chapter 19. This story came from the book, the Tao of Daily Life, from a chapter in the middle part. And there is an audiobook edition available now. The audiobook edition now available on Amazon as well as Audible. I would like to recommend it because the narrator for the audiobook has done an amazing job in bringing the stories to life. I would like to invite you to visit either Amazon or Audible or other audiobook outlets and listen to the sample audio. Now back to this chapter. The principles that we have talked about now, the soft approach, is the reason why Lao Tzu said, the soft, the weak overcomes the strong, and the soft overcomes the hard. Let's continue on. Line 6. Line 6 says, everybody in the world knows. Let me break this line down for you, character by character. 5 characters in this line. 天下莫不知. That's the pinyin. Literally, the first 2 characters, as we talked about, means the world. Literally, it's heaven or sky for the first character, below or beneath for the second character. It just means all below heaven, everything below the sky. Then the third character is none, like no one. And then 4th character is not. Last character is know, to know something. So please take a look at the 3rd and 4th characters, none and not. That's actually a double negative. It means there is no one who does not know, which just means everyone knows. A literal translation would depict this as exactly what you see there. There is no one who does not know, or there's no one in the world who does not know. Now, one problem faced by a translator is that if you know the original language, not all translators do, a literal translation, as you can see, will result in something that is rather verbose in English. A very short line, 5 characters, expands into a much longer line in English. So what would be the interest, would be in the best interest of the reader? Well, the translator has a choice. Translate literally, end up with something that's long and rather clumsy, or stick to the spirit of the Daodejing. The Daodejing was meant to be concise. It was meant to present its lessons with brevity. Therefore, the solution, possible solution, the solution that I have used myself is to collapse the double negative. Instead of there is no one who does not know, make it everybody in the world knows. This expresses the original meaning and it keeps the English at relatively the same length or the same feel as the original. So expanding it out, it just says that what it means is just that everybody knows about the soft and weak. Everybody knows water is soft and pliant and can fill any container, take the shape of that container, and yet it is also extremely powerful. Everybody can see that. But then the challenge is line 7. Line 7 says, but cannot put into practice. This is highlighting the difference between knowing and doing. Just because we know something doesn't mean that we follow the teaching or actually apply it to life. So this line is 莫能行. The 3 characters literally, the first character, please note that the first character here is the same as the middle character in line 6. It's the same meaning, none. And the middle character, none, that means can or able to. And the final character there, Xing, it means to go somewhere, to travel somewhere. It also means to do something. Together, this basically says no one can apply what they know about the soft and weak. Practically no one. We all know we should tread softly, but we often fail to do so. We know we should be gentle, but oftentimes we are not. We know we should use the light touch, but sometimes we just forget. We have the tendency in the opposite direction, most of us. You've seen this too. Fight fire with fire. Somebody yelling at you, well, you probably want to yell back louder to show that you are not backing down. You want to show that you can give as well as you take. You want things to be what we say, we call it even Steven. You want to even the score, even things out. So a real life confrontation becomes like a contest. It's a shouting match, staring contest, neither side willing to back down. We all have that tendency. We want to present a tough appearance, like, don't mess with me. In reality, and from the Tao perspective, this is signifying that we have a fear of backing down and be seen as weak. Like, you coward. We are afraid of being seen as afraid. We fear being seen as fearful. Therefore, we provide the appearance of the opposite. That is human nature in a nutshell. Therefore, the sages say, this is line 8, sages observe all this. Sages observe what we typically do in real life, everyday situations. They make conclusions about this. They provide insights. So the important thing here is that the sages are among us. That is how they're able to make their observations. They see people interact every day. They observe themselves interacting with people every day. The ancient sages did not live apart from society. They were very much part of society. That's how they were able to do what they do. That's how they were able to help people that they helped. As I have mentioned before, the stereotype of a sage who lives like a hermit in the mountains, that's more of a stereotype. There are certainly times when sages decide to go to the mountains for peace and quiet, but mostly and more often, the sages are with the people, among the people, to be for the people. They realized that if they lived apart from society as a hermit, there were things that they would not be able to do. A hermit would not be aware of personal interactions in a community because the hermit lives in isolation, far away from people. The hermit would not be able to see how people acted and gain insights from that. The hermit would not be able to provide assistance to people in need of guidance because he's so far away from them. The people who needed the guidance of a sage, if the sage was a hermit, may not be able to find a hermit at all. And lastly, the hermit will not be able to make relevant and practical suggestions because he is so far away. What he has thought about may not work just because he doesn't have that real life experience interacting with people. He can get an accurate read on the situation too far away. Next, let's go to line 9. Line 9, I want to zoom in on the second character there, 国. Pinyin looks pretty much like the way it sounds. 国, what does that mean? It means state, nation, country. So that's why in line 9 says, the one who accepts the humiliation of the state. So the state is the translation for 国 in this case. It appears that Laozi with this line is addressing the ruler, like the king or the emperor. In reality, we know the ruler is you. So in other words, Laozi is addressing you. It is only at the surface level that this line seems to be about the kingdom or the empire. So what is guo? Below the surface level, this is actually about your life. Your life is the state that you are in. It is the nation that you lead. It's the country that you rule. It's your kingdom. It's your empire. So I would say that this line is actually one of the most obvious examples where Laozi seems to be talking about the ruler or talking to a ruler, but it's actually talking to you, addressing leadership in general and mastery of one's life in particular. And the reason why we know that is because the chapter starts out talking about the soft approach in life. It's talking about the versatility of being like water. So let's look at the whole line. The one who accepts the humiliation of the state. This requires more explanation. The very last character there is the character translated as humiliation. Humiliation specifically in this context refers to a low point for the state, analogous to a low point on the ground. So when a state, a country, an empire, a kingdom has a low point in its history, it has suffered a humiliating defeat. It is at a low point. What happens when this is the case for the ruler? It depends on the wisdom of the ruler. The unwise ruler deflects blame to others. That wasn't me. That was because of something else. it was because of another kingdom that caused, they're the ones that caused the problem, or pointing to, oh, my ministers, they're not competent. My generals are weak. It's because of them. It's not because of me. On the other hand, the wise ruler has the humility to take responsibility. What happens when the wise ruler is responsible? He becomes like the ocean, accepting 100 rivers. This is a reference to another chapter of the Daodejing, where Laozi says, the greatest ruler is like the ocean because the ocean occupies the lowest point, and that is why 100 rivers flow into the ocean, like 100 tributes to the king, or 100 people devoting, dedicating, contributing to the effort led by the king. So the lowest point is important. This is a clear sign that this particular ruler deserves the power of his position. And this is where we begin to talk about mastery. The mastery of an ancient ruler for his kingdom is the mastery of you as the ruler of your life. So let me put it together in this way. So the line says, the one who accepts the humiliation of the state. Let's be specific. I have a table here. Laozi is addressing the ruler, and the ruler is you. The situation is ancient times and also modern times. The reaction is a reaction of the king and your reaction to the adversity. The plan is, what are you going to do about it? And the outcome is what you can expect. So let's line them up. The situation for the ruler is that the ruler needs to handle a humiliation of the state, such as defeat in battle. It's a big setback for the kingdom. The analogous situation for you and me, for all of us, is handling a humiliating setback in life, perhaps a public failure. Not just a failure that people don't know about, but something that is seen by everyone. How humiliating. So the reaction. The ruler should be responsible and accountable in order to rally the people. That's the wise ruler. For the wise person today, you should acknowledge rather than to rail against what has occurred. That is, it doesn't do anybody any good for you to deny reality. You need to accept and acknowledge that, yeah, this happened. It wasn't what I wanted, but it did happen. What's the plan? We need to work on building the strength of the kingdom for the king. The king rallies the people, bring them together, so everyone can contribute effort into the overall building, rebuilding the strength of the kingdom. How about for you? It just means we need to learn our lessons from the setback and make the appropriate changes, improve what we do. What is the outcome that can be expected from that? Well, we know the kingdom or the empire will emerge more united and stronger than ever. Apply to you, it just means you make your victorious comeback. In other words, out of all this, the wise ruler will use the soft approach to deal with negativity. Whether that wise ruler is the king of ancient times or you in modern times? The soft approach. The hard approach is I'm always right. I'm never wrong. The problems are caused by someone else, not me. No, never me. And I alone can fix it. What is the soft approach? My fault. This is my responsibility. I own up to it. I'm responsible for the mistakes. I made mistakes, but now I have learned from them. I accept the blame, so now we can move on. We can fix it together instead of I alone can fix it. That is the soft approach. That is the Tao. We are now approaching the end of the meeting, so I'm going to jump to the summary to summarize what we have talked about today. What are some takeaways from this chapter? The first one, I want to quote Bruce Lee, be water, my friend. That is, we can be formless and shapeless. It means having the ability to adapt to changing conditions. No matter how things change, we can be like water. We can adapt to it. Now, the flexibility to change is one part of it. The other part is to be able to flow and be powerful and have the ability to smash like water. And the second thing is that I want to ask everyone to notice the difference between knowing and doing. Lao Tzu says, everybody knows this Tao principle, but few can put it into practice. People know better, we know better. But still, oftentimes, people use the hard approach. We find ourselves doing that too, yowling, getting angry. So we must resolve to not fall into the same trap. That means when other people lose their temper, we have to maintain composure. We have to stick to the soft approach. When others become violent, we must be the ones to maintain peace. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us all travel safely so we can meet again. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.